Historically, Cherokee clothing reflected our connection to nature. Garments were made mostly from natural materials and adorned with clay beads and shells. Osio Nagad, Jen Lauren Dawado, Noksi, Chalagi Gadi. Welcome to Chalagi wherever we are. Over time, trade with Europeans led to the adoption of European-style clothing, including shirts, leggings, and skirts. Trade items such as silk ribbons, glass beads, and metals like copper and silver were utilized, while some traditional garments like moccasins and jewelry did continue to be worn. Today, we will examine how those traditions have informed today's culture of Cherokee fashion. We'll start today's show with remarks from Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation, Chuck Hoskin Jr. Then Chief Hoskin will join me here for Q&A. After that, we will bring you an OCO TV segment about Cherokee designer Lloyd Kiva New. Next, I will be joined by Cherokee National Treasure Tonia Hogner-Weavel and contemporary designer Kenny Glass. And finally, we will be joined in studio by Cherokee storyteller Candace Bird Boney. And now it's my pleasure to introduce my friend and Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. for his remarks.
Osio, the tradition of Cherokee clothing and fashion reflects our people's deep connection to the land, culture, and identity. Historically, Cherokee clothing was crafted with purpose and meaning, using materials from our natural environment. Skins, river cane, and plant fibers were shaped into garments that were both functional and beautiful. Beadwork, shells, and copper were used in creative patterns, not merely for decoration, but also used as symbols of family connection and spiritual beliefs. Each piece told a part of our people's story, from daily life and ceremonial occasions. Over time, as contact with European settlers introduced new fabrics and influences, Cherokee fashion adapted. Trade cloth and ribbons became part of our regalia as makers blended new materials with traditional designs. Ribbon shirts and teardresses emerged as cultural symbols that remain a vital part of our tribe to this day. And Cherokee fashion continues to evolve. Today, we'll meet artists who create clothing that honors our past while making bold, contemporary statements. Cherokee designers use traditional patterns, colors, and stories in their work, whether for everyday wear, couture fashion shows, or cultural celebrations. Today's Cherokee fashion is a link between the wisdom of our ancestors and the innovation of new generations. Cherokee clothing remains a form of cultural pride and expression. It's not just what we wear, but a reflection of who we are and where we're going. Wado,
Chief, thank you for joining me over here to talk about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, which is Cherokee fashion. I've got my Tracy Rabbit earrings on today. There have been quite a few new and upcoming Cherokee fashion designers here lately. I'd like to hear what you think about why is preserving the link to traditional clothing and fashion important to Cherokee Nation?
Well, I think it's important because it's really accessible to lots of people. And lots of people can say, I want to honor my culture, but there's ways to do it. You can hang beautiful art on the wall. You can set a sculpture. Wearing something, I think, instills people with a type of pride that only clothing can do, because you can sort of blend things and as we all do, sort of decide what you're going to wear today, and you can include Cherokee culture. So I think in that regard, clothing's particularly special.
It's a very personal way to share your culture. I mean,
Indeed,
yeah.
indeed.
So how do you see modern Cherokee clothing makers honoring our history while creating new designs? Have you noticed?
Well, I have noticed. I mean, one of the events that we helped put on the last few years was this amazing Cherokee fashion show. And it was at the Anna Mitchell Cultural Center. And when I saw that, I saw these young people who were both participating and watching. And when you see that, that's really all you need to know about whether an art form has a bright future. Is a generation coming up interested in it? And they're very interested in it. And so I think it's inspiring people to blend design into their everyday wear. The earrings you talked about, other items you can wear. I'll wear a gorget on occasion. Ribbon shirts, and then adapting those to the type of clothing that people want to wear. I think particularly young people, because that's how we perpetuate it. So I think it's important for designers to go back to those historic designs, but put them in a form that people want to wear.
Absolutely. So, do you have a favorite piece of Cherokee clothing?
Well, my favorite piece was one that my wife made, which was the ribbon shirt I wore at my first inaugural address in 2019. And then second place was the ribbon shirt she made for my first State of the Nation in 2019. Both of those are very special, particularly the inauguration shirt, because she worked long and hard on that, even into the evening before the inauguration. So it was very special in that regard. I also have a hand-woven belt from Counselor Condessa Teehee that I wore at an early formal occasion. So those things are very special to me. But anything my wife makes is going to be top of the charts.
She does a great job. Those are iconic shirts, I will say. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here and for sharing that with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We now go to Deputy Chief Bryan Warner, who introduces us to the amazing life of Cherokee designer Lloyd Kiva. Deputy Chief?
Thanks, Jen. OCO friends, today we shine a spotlight on Lloyd Kiva. He was a trailblazer, visionary, and proud citizen of the Cherokee Nation. Known as a pioneer of Native fashion, Lloyd Kiva fused traditional art with contemporary design, and he helped open institutional doors for Indian artists to share their works with the world. His groundbreaking work in the 1940s and beyond brought Native style and fashion to runways and high-end shops. He uniquely changed people's perceptions and reclaimed cultural identity in a new and exciting way through fashion. His influence went far beyond the sewing table. As a co-founder of the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe, New Mexico, he empowered generations of Native youth to express themselves through art and design. He believed that preserving Cherokee culture also meant evolving it, and his legacy is a testament to that belief. We appreciate the OCO team for taking the time to profile Lloyd Kiva, a man who was truly ahead of his time. Wadon.
Lloyd Kiva was really a pathbreaker in Native fashion and education. He was Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma, but spent most of his adult life and career in the Southwest.
Lloyd was born near Fairland, Oklahoma, and he grew up on a farm called Timber Hill, which is near the Neosho River. As a child, Lloyd was always drawn to the arts. He recalls making his own pigment from clays found on the farm. His mother and father actually would speak Cherokee to each other, but they didn't teach the children because at the time they thought that was a sign of, not being progressive. If you spoke the language, they wanted the children to have a better life than they did. So he talks about lamenting the fact that he didn't learn the language as a child. He was very interested in painting, drawing, sculptures. It wasn't until later in life when he got into the fashion and fabrics. He enrolled in Oklahoma A&M College, which would become Oklahoma State University. But he did take some classes in home economics, and that's where he was first exposed to the idea of fabrics. He learned how to identify different fabrics for men's clothing, and that kind of set that spark for him to eventually enter fashion. He wound up quitting Oklahoma A&M just because of, lack of interest, and he wanted to find a different direction. He kind of went through a depression, and his mother and sister were really concerned about it. They went to Muskogee to visit the Indian agent there at the office of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and they asked if they could give a student loan for him to go to the Art Institute in Chicago. And they did it, and so that's how he wound up going there, and that's where he got his art education to become an arts educator himself. After he graduated from Chicago, he moved to Phoenix to begin teaching, and then that's when he got caught up in the war. But after the war, he returned to the Phoenix area to kind of pick up where he left off, and he established his shop, his fashion shop, making the bags and things in Scottsdale, which at the time was starting to really develop into this center for lots of handcrafted items and things, and he was on the forefront of that. Lloyd was one of the first Native fashion designers. But he was the first one to bring it to a very successful and popular venture where people would recognize that Native designs and fashions were very unique and very valuable.
Just outside Phoenix, where a lot of galleries and artist studios were, that's where he and Charles Lolema first started collaborating in the Kiva studio in Scottsdale, Arizona in the 1950s. He really was an innovator. in Native fashion. He did things that people had never done before. And one of the things was incorporating images, designs, and traditions, not only from his own Cherokee background, but from the Native backgrounds and traditions in the Southwest where he made his home. Aside from his innovation, his work and others became mainstream. So these cocktail dresses from the 1950s were available in high-end department stores in Denver, Los Angeles, and New York. It wasn't just in Santa Fe or in the Southwest, but they were really part of the mainstream American culture in these department stores in major cities all over the country. And he collaborated with many people as well. That was an important factor and influence in his work.
He reached back home. There was the Sequoia Weavers Association, which made a lot of their own textiles, and they were selling things to some of the same department stores. And so they had this partnership in which they would design and make textiles for him, and he would make the clothing and sell them to all these other places. They wound up showing their work at the Fashion Expo in New York City, so their work was gaining really large exposure. And that really caught the attention of not just that local area, but the world. People like Eleanor Roosevelt would come and buy things from him, and people like Frank Lloyd Wright as his friend, so he had a really great circle of people around him.
Both Lloyd Kiva and Charles Lolema were such innovators that many people here in the States, native and non-native, thought their designs and artwork and jewelry went too far and was so contemporary that it wasn't really native anymore. But when the two of them had this successful runway show in Paris in 1963, and the French raved about how creative and artistic their designs were, the Americans started to really take notice and say, oh, well, we like that stuff too. Looking at Lloyd New's career and the reaction of people to his work, we've been having this conversation for a long time. What is Native art? How is it defined? And who is doing the defining? It really should be the Native artists who are doing the defining.
At the height of his career as a designer, he had this international acclaim. And then he decided to refocus his efforts on Native arts education, and that was in the late 50s, early 60s. And soon after that, that's when he began planning IAIA, the establishment of the Institute for American Indian Arts. So he was an art director and then became a president. He was an instructor. In this time, this was during the mid-20th century, people were recognizing that Native art was a very uniquely American thing. And I think trying to teach young artists to recognize that their own artworks and art forms were valid. The idea was to create a progressive model for Native students to go to where they could express themselves as Native people. As an arts educator, one of the biggest parts of his legacy is telling Native artists that you define what Native art is. There's this conception in the popular imagination of what Native art is supposed to be, but his philosophy was basically that as Native artists, we are Natives making art, and what we make is Native art.
He was ahead of his time. I am always amazed at Lloyd Kivanu's influence over the fashion industry, not just in the U.S., but also in European markets. And of course, you can find that segment and many more at oco.tv. I am now joined by Cherokee National Treasure Tonia Hogner-Weavel and Cherokee designer Kenny Glass-Wadeau for joining us today. We appreciate you coming out. Let's dive right in. Cherokee fashion, Tonia, let's start with you. You are known as the quintessential historian and designer of Cherokee historic fashions and clothing. So how do you believe Cherokee clothing and traditions help preserve and express our Cherokee Nation, our identity today?
It's very curious. There's not a lot of research, and the research that you find was written by someone else, an observer looking in on our world. And so sometimes you have to take research with a grain of salt. But you also have a look at our people and how we lived and how we dressed and what we did. And it's the best thing about Cherokee fashion for me is that everything that I've studied is that it's very practical and it's very simple. Everything we wore wrapped. We wrapped skirts around us. The men wrapped a breech cloth around the important parts. And we wrapped capes and mantles So we were very practical in our clothing. And so to carry that forward, today we have a real fashion sense. So we like to look the part, we like to dress the part, and we like to honor our ancestors by wearing those kinds of clothes.
Yeah. Um, Kenny, I know that your designs and techniques are more contemporary. How do you approach designs while staying true to historic Cherokee cultural imagery and items?
Usually when I start something, I like to kind of look at the fabric a little bit and see where it takes my mind a little bit. And like for instance, when I recently did, the fabric kind of looked like water, like flowing water. And I have a ribbon and design that has crawdads on it, G-sten. And I like to not only look at, things from the past, but things that we do now and things that Cherokee people love now. And that's a part of our culture. And I know a lot of people love to hunt crawdads. And so that was something that just instantly I wanted to put together. And so I just kind of see where it takes me and I just hope people like the outcome of it.
And how do you choose which traditional elements to incorporate into your modern pieces?
Well, I know for one, and it's becoming a lot popular now. Like a lot of people love the basket designs, and that's just something that my eyes always drawn to as well. And when I first started sewing, Joseph Herb had a lot of basket fabrics you could buy online and stuff, and he also encouraged me a lot in my sewing when I started, and he gave me some to try out and use, and that's something I've always had appreciation for. I can weave a little, but I don't think I'm supposed to be a basket weaver. But so that's something I found another way to use it in my work, and just things that draw my eye is what I like.
Yeah, well, your work is beautiful. I love wearing it and seeing it on other people. So, Tonia, how does clothing and regalia impact Cherokee culture?
Well, again, we like to look like our culture, and many of us want to carry that forward. I'm always impressed with Kenny's visions and the way he turns what I see as old designs into contemporary and wearable designs. His work is very well enjoyed by the younger and older people.
It's true.
And
Yeah.
so when we look at that, I can tell you from my experience, um, 20, 30 years, 40 years ago, we didn't have these designs to choose from. We didn't have this fabric. We did have Lloyd Kiva, who didn't necessarily do his work steeped in the culture, but he had the vision of a Cherokee artist. So today, it's very easy to find fabric that mimics basket patterns. And as Kenny was saying, I too am not a basket weaver. And I took a class once with flat reed, the flat reed baskets, and that's where we get a lot of our patterns, and that was essentially our early basket style. And I thought, I can't do that, but I can weave ribbons. And so I did a ribbon weaving piece. And as a matter of fact, Kenny and I shared some techniques on ribbon weaving early on. And so to continue to use those designs, and for our young people, well, younger than me, for people to express their heritage through their outerwear is real refreshing. And it's refreshing that we have those options today that we didn't have several years ago. So it's really exciting to see so many people utilize fashion as part of their own heritage and as part of who they are.
I agree. And I know you have also created some really beautiful modern women's suits with Cherokee cultural elements and dresses and I mean both of you, the work that you do is exquisite and we appreciate it.
We have a hotline on the message pad.
Yes.
Sometimes we really play off of each other. I really like to make contemporary clothes, things that are appealing today, that have a flavor of the past. And I really like to do things that Cherokee people recognize. So sometimes they're a little hidden, maybe you too, little hidden symbolism that Cherokee people can point out that maybe the general public wouldn't take note of. And to me, that's just honoring the culture and honoring the people. Just one more step forward.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people they always tell me like about like that I do things in a modern way, and I always think like, well, Tonia's been doing it for a lot longer than I have, and she's really an expert at it. So I'm really thankful to like learn from her and learn from you, and I appreciate it. But
And I too have to say that I wasn't a pioneer. My mentor is Wendell Cochran. And on a recent OCO TV episode with Wendell, it was so heartwarming to see him. He's a force. He was a force with fashion. If you don't know about him, study up on him. But he really inspired me to be true to Cherokee culture.
Yeah, I have heard that about him. We were really excited to be able to tell his story on OCO TV this season. Kenny, what has been your most meaningful fashion creation personally?
I have a couple that kind of stand out in my head. One, I didn't even really mean for it to be any kind of fashion moment or anything. Back in 2016, I made a big Cinderella style dress.
I remember that. It was epic.
I made it for I think it was called Princesses and Savages. It was a art show about stereotypes, and American Meredith asked me to be a part of it. And at first, I really didn't even think that my work would fit into this art show, and I didn't know what I could make. And I started thinking about it, and we've all heard everyone has a Cherokee grandma that was a princess, and so I kind of went off of that a little bit, and it became I really liked the outcome of it, and I put the diamond cutout patterns in there, and then the basket weave fabrics, and I got to actually show it in Cherokee, North Carolina for the Conant-Nesky fashion show. The first time I did that show, I actually had someone got to wear it for the first time, and so it was really exciting
Cool.
to see somebody wear that, and so
Cool. What about you, Tonia?
I think maybe the first tear dress, the first of hundreds of tear dresses I've made. I think that was most memorable because Wendell Cochran had talked to me about how that all came together. I was associated with the Trail of Tears drama. I was a dancer in 1974 and 1976, many years and pounds ago. And he told me how the Trail of Tears drama actually helped propel the modern day Cherokee tear dress. There's a terrific history about the tear dress. And so I think making my first one that Wendell graded, it was almost as if he took a red pen and marked the things, but he taught me so much. So I think the first tear dress I made was for a 6-year-old girl who later asked me to make her a dress for Miss Cherokee, and later asked me to alter her wedding dress. So that felt like a real full circle moment for me. But I think making that first tear dress was probably my most memorable. And to be honest, I don't remember exactly who I made the adult dress for, but the tear dress has been a real staple in my sewing career.
You've made one for my daughter.
Yes, yes.
A lot of people have your tear dresses, and they're beautifully done. They're so well crafted and quality. It's just fantastic. Okay, last question for you both, starting with you, Tonia. When someone proudly wears your creation, how does that make you feel? And what do you hope they feel by wearing it?
First of all, I'm in a stage now where I don't do a lot of creating because my request list is so long. I don't always have time. And so it's been my pleasure to make dresses for people. As a Cherokee woman, if you're asked, you do. And so that makes me feel good that people request my work. And so when they wear the dress, I want to ensure that the dress fits them and the dress is what they want. So I allow them to choose colors. They ask me and I say, you wear it, it'll be your dress. So it's a pleasure to make the dress that you envision or that whoever is asking envisions. And so I'm happy to do that. And so when they wear it, I want them to wear it. I want little girls to wear it and maybe tear the hem and get it dirty and use it and wear it and throw it in the washer and hang it back up, because they're not special dresses, they're our dresses. So I hope that that's what happens. I did have a lady say to me one time when I was early on making and not so confident about my work, she said, nobody ever throws those dresses away. You don't see them in a yard sale. They're family legacies. The daughter wears them, the granddaughter wears them. And inside, I just kind of rose a little bit, stood a little taller because I thought, I think that's true. So that's my
Agreed.
take on that.
It is. Great. What about you, Kenny?
I get really excited when I see people, wearing my work. And when I first started sewing, it was mostly just ribbon skirts or slant skirts. And I gifted a lot of them to, where I lived at. There was a lot of tribes that lived up there and they did a lot of dances. And so I had a lot of friends there that danced and I gifted a lot of them just to see them out there and have people use them. But it really makes me happy when I see them being used just the same way. Like, I like to make things just to be hung up on the wall but I want it to be used. And I'm kind of a little bit the opposite of what Tonia said with the colors and stuff. I really enjoy when people give me freedom to do what I like to make. So it does make me happy and I do like to make sure they like it at the end before I said, this is what you're stuck with. So I do like to make sure that they're happy with it. And, there was one time that it was a lady that she's a friend of mine, and she told me she didn't like the one it came up with. And at first I was a little taken back, and I just, but I was like, well, this is hers, and she needs to love it. So I redid it again, and she felt bad at first, but I was like, it's fine. Somebody else will love this one. It's not meant for you. And so I'm happy to make sure people love what they have on and get really good use out of it. So it really makes me happy to see it worn out the same way. Yes, I like to see that.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you, my Kenny Glass ribbon skirt has been through the washer and dryer many times, so it's well worn. Thank you both for spending time with us today and talking about your work. We appreciate you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To wrap up our show, we are joined by Cherokee storyteller Candace Bird Boney. Take it away, Candace.
Osio, Candace Bird Boney Dawado, Chike e G Squa Kolaha Dawado. My name is Candace Bird Boney, and I'm your storyteller today, and I will be telling you the story of how the deer got his antlers. Ilahiu Chike sa Wiawa. They said that it happened a long time ago, that Ahui, the deer, and Jistu, the rabbit, were the fastest animals amongst all the animals. This was back before the deer had his antlers, and he always looked like a doe. And the Jistu, well, he always wanted a pair of antlers for his own, because this was before his ears got elongated. Well, the other animals were dying to know who was fastest amongst them. Jistu can hop far and long, but the Ahui can run so swift and so quietly. Who really is the fastest? So the animals suggested a race between the two, with the prize being an antler rack. Whoever is the fastest animal would win these antlers, and they set the antlers in the middle of the forest. Well, they drew up the course, and they decided that Ahui, the deer, and Jistu, the rabbit, would run through a thicket, turn around, and then come back, and whoever was the fastest would win those antlers. Well, they lined Ahui and Jistu up, and Jistu started getting a little bit restless. And he said, Ahui is so much more taller than I am. He can see so much farther. I am so little. I need to peek ahead and see, what am I running into? Something could eat me. I could run into something. And the other animals thought, okay, we'll let him have a peek. So they let Jistu run ahead a little bit and peek into that thicket. Well, the animals waited and they really wanted that race to start. And they thought to themselves, that Jistu's up to something. He's up to his old tricks. So they sent a little spy to go and see, what was Jistu taking so long? What was taking him so long? So the little spy peeked through the thicket and found Jistu gnawing away at the thicket, at the brambles and the vines. He was clearing himself a path right through that thicket so he could run the fastest and have the clearest path. Well, the animals said that just wouldn't do, and the race was over before it even began. And they called G Stu back and they said, G Stu, this was going to be a really honest and fair race. And now you've just chewed through all that bramble, you've chewed through the vines, and so for the rest of your life, you can do that. You can chew on those vines and those brambles. But we're going to give these antlers, we're giving them to Ahwi. We're going to give them to the deer. And that's how deer got his antlers. Wado.
Widow Candace. Cherokee fashion, whether you like traditional or contemporary, is omnipresent in the world today. With online shopping, art markets, or social media, the accessibility to our amazing artists is really just a few clicks away. Whether you're looking for a tear dress, a modern bandolier bag, a handbag, a silk scarf, moccasins, matching copper gorget and earrings, woven belt, a ribbon shirt, skirt, we can go on and on. The internet will let you learn more about fashion and maybe inspire you to become a designer yourself. And don't forget to support Cherokee artists who pour their lives into perpetuating our culture. Cherokees have no word for goodbye. We say, Donadago hunt ye. Until we see each other again, Wado.